Welcome to Change Happens, a weekly gathering of things that I found entertaining, informative, or thoughtful as I made my way through the digital cave that is the interweb.
Welcome to Change Happens, volume 118. Have a great day, find your way. From the walls of the digital cave. Hi. What is more majestic than reality? I began to grow up in books, in the promise of a world of wonders, a place for meeting with adventure. I imagined the look and feel and taste of everything at once. It lived across the page. What was more alive than that? On a perfectly sunny morning, somewhere on a winter road, I almost passed a snowy owl waiting. On a post high enough above the ground, it sat so still, a white that can't be painted. Only one of us thought to be odd. I carry the books with me always, knowing now they were filled with descriptions of things seen and unseen, of things waiting to be looked upon. Change Happens, brought to you by a father and a daughter discussing matters, hyperventilating the podcast, entertaining, thoughtful, and informative. Join us every Wednesday. Born to cooperate. Headline, are we naturally good or bad? From the article. Fundamentally speaking, are humans good or bad? It's a question that has repeatedly been asked throughout humanity. For thousands of years, philosophers have debated whether we have a basically good nature that is corrupted by society or a basically bad nature that is kept in check by society. Psychology has uncovered some evidence which might give the old debate a twist. The article is less about good or bad, to me. It's more about positive or negative, which isn't semantics. A thing can be a net negative to an individual without being bad. The same thing may even be a net positive for another person, and not necessarily be good. We inherently see events as being positive, helpful, or negative, unhelpful. We may not categorize them as such, but we effectively react to them this way, if only subconsciously. Are they something that move us forward or hinder our forward progress? I think it's more about the innate nature of this consideration. Is the interaction we are witnessing or part of helpful or unhelpful? A very interesting way to think of the nature of good and bad from the perspective of a child learning the ways the external world impacts life. Just right. Headline, the Swedish philosophy of lagom. How just enough is all you need. From the article. Lagom translates as just the right amount. It means knowing when enough is enough and trying to find balance and moderation rather than constantly grasping for more. Lagom is that feeling of contentment we all get when we have all that we need to make us comfortable. It's neither a millionaire's splurge in Vegas nor a pauper's cold winter night. It means having a roof over your head, food in your belly, friends at your back, and money, just enough money in your pockets. It's not that this is some revolutionary concept. More, I've come across this before, and I like the word. There's a great energy behind it. One of those words that has life to it beyond being descriptive. Lagom is essentially the idea of just enough. It's one of those things that you can't remind yourself of too often. That having enough is okay. Being satisfied with what you have, feeling good about what you have, knowing that having just enough is not a bad thing. You don't necessarily need more all the time, you simply don't. Lagom is founded on the idea that the pursuit of more becomes a problem. More than words. Headline, simplicity or style, what makes a sentence a masterpiece? From the article. A great sentence makes you want to chew it over slowly in your mouth the first time you read it. A great sentence compels you to rehearse it again in your mind's ear and then again later on. A sentence must have a certain distinction of style. The words come in an order that couldn't have been assembled by any other writer. This week's Nerd Edition is specifically for the word nerds. A very nice article. Definitely subjective because everybody has their own idea of what the perfect sentence is. Somebody might find one sentence to be too verbose, another might find the presentation too simple. It's the idea that there does exist sentences that are somehow more sublime, that are more magnificent than others. Sentences that have been constructed in a way that is pleasurable or insightful. Sentences you want to consider again and again. Perhaps you read it and it makes you smile. It is a kind of wonderful that we can be imparted something that we did not know or find a new understanding of something that you thought you knew already. an exaltation of the possibilities of discovering beauty in the written word. February 25th, 1964. Muhammad Ali, champion. Wiki rabbit hole. Born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky, he began training as an amateur boxer at 12. At 18, he won a gold medal in the light heavyweight division at the 1960 Summer Olympics and turned professional later that year. He joined the Nation of Islam in the early 1960s, but later disavowed it in the mid-1970s. He won the World Heavyweight Champion, defeating Sonny Liston in a major upset on February 25, 1964, at age 22. During that year, he denounced his birth name as a slave name and formally changed his name to Muhammad Ali. In 1967, Ali refused to be drafted into the military owing to his religious beliefs and ethical opposition to the Vietnam War, and was found guilty of draft evasion and stripped of his boxing titles. He stayed out of prison while appealing the decision of the Supreme Court, where his conviction was overturned in 1971. He did not fight for nearly 4 years and lost a period of peak performance as an athlete. Ali's actions as a conscientious objector to the Vietnam War made him an icon for the larger counterculture of the 1960s generation, and became a prominent high-profile figure of racial pride for African Americans during the Civil Rights Movement and throughout his career. Robot fixes. Headline: Like babies and dancers, this robot learns from studying itself. From the article, researchers from Columbia University have successfully developed an autonomous robot arm capable of learning new motions and adapting to damage simply by watching itself move. The robot observed a video of itself and then used that data to plan its next actions, a practice the researchers refer to as kinematic self-awareness. This unique learning process is designed to mimic the way humans adjust certain movements by watching themselves in a mirror. Teaching robots to learn this way could reduce the need for extensive training and bespoke 3D simulation. It could also one day make future autonomous robots operating in the real world better equipped to adapt to damage and environmental changes without constant human intervention. Alright, this I found in equal parts disturbing and fascinating. I've included the first 2 paragraphs of this article for those of you disinclined to read it fully, because I don't know how you could consider this and not on some level think, well, that could be a problem. Seriously, all of these brilliant new developments, these amazing advances, they feel increasingly unchecked. The robots are becoming able to self-correct, to repair themselves, to learn from their behaviors without any input from humans. Can you not see the potential for disaster in that? I mean, come on, you don't even have to be a sci-fi fanatic. You just have to be a person who's thinking that you might not want your robot butler wandering around the house learning things and making decisions. It's a good article beyond that. Interesting. At one point, they postulate how amazing it would be if you had a self-repairing vacuum robot. Sure, yeah, that would be amazing. You know what wouldn't be amazing? A self-repairing robot assistant who decided I was a problem. Not a dream. Headline: Why do we twitch in our sleep? From the article. And so it took years to get the methods going, but what we started to see is that every time the animal twitches, 10 milliseconds later, the part of the brain that's responsive to sensory input for that limb shows a huge burst of activity. So twitch activity, not the other way around. This is a sensory signal, right? So this timing here matters. If you have a twitch, and then you get a burst of activity in the brain after that twitch, then you have a pretty good idea that that's a sensory signal that you're picking up on. This is an interesting article about the cause, or in this case, the cause and effect, of sleep twitching. From strong evidence, it appears that it's not the dreams causing the twitches, it's the twitches causing the dreams. The twitches are the result of sensory input. Something sensorial happens and that generates an impact in the brain, not the other way around. That's about as removed as possible from what most of us have probably always assumed. I definitely believed that the twitching was dreaming related. Your dog's running, you're running, or the person that you're watching sleep is running, probably from you because you're watching them sleep. All active in their brains, so active in reality. The research suggests it's the system bootstrapping, that the system is testing itself. While you're sleeping, the system is trying out different things, testing its processes and sending information to the brain. It's your system learning about itself. So essentially, while you're twitching, you're experimenting with different sensory input and then getting a reaction in the brain. The theory is, in part, supported by the understanding that we twitch less as we get older. The sleep twitching appears to be part of a process of learning, of getting sensory input and processing it as data in our brain for future use. Alive underwater. Headline: Seals, Sharks, and Spiny Squat Lobsters Underwater Photographer of the Year 2025. From the article, Herrero captured the special relationship between a mother humpback whale and her newborn calf in French Polynesia. For me, this photo really shows a mother's love and communicates the beauty and fragility of life in our ocean. The mother is accompanying her calf to the surface because the baby is still so small and clumsy. The calf is releasing a few bubbles, showing it is still learning to hold its breath properly. This week's installment of The Animal Kingdom is a collection of amazing photos which, as I mentioned before, I never get tired of. They're just beautiful. Through them, you can still witness a reality you might not otherwise be privy to, a real representation of the world. So, as I've said before, enjoy this while we can still look at a photo and say, yeah, that's actually a part of the world we live in. When you're a student, you're judged by how well you answer questions. But in life, you're judged by how good your questions are. Robert Langer. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to next week.
When we meet again inside the spectacular human repository of everything and nothing, it's your life, you understand.